Billy Wardlow before he was executed, he spent most of the interview talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Besides access to social media platforms, the level of isolation I have endured is equivalent to the most inhumane form of psychological and physical torture one can sustain. Most of the last 4 years could be considered little more than solitary confinement. For the vast majority of the last 4 years, I have been almost entirely alone in one apartment or another, connected safely only behind one screen or another through social media platforms. And if I wasn't, I was around people who acted as if an ongoing cardiovascular disease doesn't exist. They acted as if me taking precautions to prevent from contracting C19 as someone known high risk for long COVID and also a severe case of COVID. This is normal systemic discrimination. Within prison, the level of isolation that I have lived throughout the last 4 years is considered a form of corporal punishment that is deemed too inhumane to endure for more than a few months. And yet, in hindsight, this is still the most relaxed my nervous system has been in my entire life. That's really fucking saying something. Disclosing an experience of extreme isolation during this era is a narrative that I haven't seen anyone else articulate in fullness that I do herein. Because most people don't pay attention to the most recent research and thus are misled by the CDC into deep denial to act like COVID-19 doesn't even exist anymore. This also includes most authors that I've seen writing about this era. Most disappointingly, those who write about sex. But anyone who writes about COVID in the past tense right now is propagating eugenics rhetorics. This mass normalized denial has exceptional consequences on people who don't have the privilege to be able to pretend it doesn't exist. Meaning anyone who is immunosuppressed, immunocompromised, are already disabled in whatever other capacity, and or they're non-disabled, but also just recognize that literally anyone who contracts this cardiovascular disease enough times is not going to survive without a lifelong disability and untimely death. Meaning realizing who I am and embracing me alone for the first time in my life while being able to afford to live on blood money, therefore not having to work myself to death, and not being in constant fight or flight despite isolation has truly changed my life in profound ways. Mind you, most of us couldn't afford to have the same, yet mass self-realization still occurred.